What's up, everybody, and welcome to this special Geek Bites episode here, brought to you by the
Geek Buddies.
Hey! Well, we wanted to come on to this particular Geek Bites and have a conversation about this incredible Memorial Day weekend we had here with both live-action Lilo and Stitch and Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning coming out and really exploding at the box office. And by that, I mean Lilo and Stitch almost already making $500 million worldwide on its opening weekend. And Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning breaking records for opening weekend for the Mission Impossible franchise. So it's an interesting place to be in now. And we're going to talk a little bit about the movies, not do too much spoiler stuff, but certainly talk about the reaction, the box office, and what this means for movies at this point in 2025 going forward. So, Michael, you're the one that suggests this topic. It's a great topic. What are your thoughts on all this? What do you want to say about it? Let's lead us off here, man.
Well, first, I mean, I can't start this off without saying I was right.
Oh, here we go. Here we go, boy.
When I said that I thought Lilo and Stitch was going to crush Mission Impossible and have a record-breaking weekend, I was not incorrect. Yeah, I mean, absolutely massive weekend, but even I didn't anticipate Lilo and Stitch having the biggest opening for a Memorial Day weekend ever, and the combined box office leading us to one of the biggest Memorial Day weekend box offices of all time. And I think that's something cool to talk about, because most of the time when we are talking about movies and box office, we are asking why the audience didn't show up. Do people have superhero fatigue? Are people over movies? Do they just want to watch movies at home now? Is streaming ruining the movie-going experience? And as much as we will see those articles again, and we have seen plenty of those articles since the pandemic, I think that when you have a weekend like Barbenheimer, when you have a weekend like Mission Impossible and live action Lilo and Stitch, and people come out in droves, it just proves the fact that like people want to go to the movies. I mean, same conversation can be applied to Sinners, and not only Sinners opening weekend, but Sinners box office. Like, people are showing up. People are showing up for the movies that they want to show up to. And I think that that's something that's really, really fun to talk about. Now, I also think it's fun to talk about Lilo and Stitch in comparison to Snow White recently.
Oh,
I think Snow White live action came out a month or so ago and did so poorly that people were like, is Disney done with live action remakes? And I think now they are not.
Right.
But I think it's interesting. Well, why did one work and why did one not? Like, what is going on? And so I think that's interesting. I think talking about Mission Impossible 8 movies in, having one of its biggest opening weekends, is also really shows that you don't bet against Tom Cruise. So yeah, I think there's a lot to talk about here, but I love it when movies as a whole have a win. And I think this weekend as a whole was a big win for movies.
Yeah, Shannon, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, this is just to get a little bit of the numbers here. Let's see. With it was the remake Lilo and Stitch, right? The receipts for the top 10 films came in at $326.7 million in the United States and Canada, and that topped the previous record of $314.3 million, which was set in 2013 when we had the 6th Fast and the Furious film. Yeah, that was a pretty awesome film, in my opinion, but I don't know if everybody else sees it. Everybody says that, but it's pretty amazing because this is now indicating the summer is bound for a $4.2 billion profit, because this weekend, as I said, made $322 million overall here. So, I mean, what are your thoughts when you look at all of this, Shannon, and the amount of money that's being made from Lilo and Stitch, and also Mission Impossible 8, considering how Mission Impossible 7 rather underperformed?
You know, I mean, I don't know if it was that this is the final Mission Impossible film. I don't know if that's what got people out a little bit more, or if just, again, the undeniable fact of Tom Cruise, that each summer we've had a big thing happen. And Tom Cruise was a part of that 2022 with Top Gun Maverick coming out. 2023, was it 2023 that we had Barbenheimer? And 2024 was the summer that got everybody worried, because the Memorial Day weekend last year, it was Furiosa and I think Garfield, and it was an underwhelming weekend that the box office took weeks to kind of correct. So knowing that people did show up for this latest Tom Cruise movie, and granted, the movie was saddled with some things that it could not have predicted in terms of strikes, and so it cost a lot of money to make. But then also to the Lilo and Stitch side, like I thought it was going to do well. I think
Yeah.
going to do. I didn't think it was going to surpass the box office of Snow White in a weekend, and like I didn't think Snow White was a good movie. I just thought that math doesn't work. So the idea that not only did audiences come out in droves for these two movies, as a result, when people couldn't get into one of these, they went and saw other movies. They went and saw Final Destination. They went and saw Thunderbolts. They went and saw Sinners. So knowing that the theatrical experience, has been on a heart monitor for ever since we got back out of COVID, having one of these weekends is a big win, because at the end of the day, we all love going to the movies. We love that indescribable theatrical experience that you get when you're in a theater.
Nicole can describe it.
I guess.
Oh, okay, come on.
She describes it before every movie.
She does.
When the lights begin to dim.
At the theater I'm going to in 2 hours, which is a great theater. It's the AMC Porter Ranch. But just knowing that audiences are still there, and I think for Marvel, this is a bit of a, I wouldn't call it a wake up call, but I mean it's that moment that they can no longer glide on the goodwill of successes of the past for movies that may not have delivered on a variety of fronts.
This is the same thing that happens with like women directors or like women driven comedies. Like a movie like Bridesmaid comes out and everybody goes, wow, I guess people do want to go see women led comedies. And we're like, yes, we do it all the time. Why do you keep saying the same thing? Like, this isn't news. But like when the Marvels of the world or the big the movie didn't do great, but people's habits are changing. They don't go to the movies like they used to. You're like, no, they will. That's not the reason your movie underperformed.
Yeah. But just to give the proper numbers out here, Lilo and Stitch, $341 million globally, including $157.8 million from international markets. That's an incredible number. Mike, you're a big Disney guy, and this, I mean, and the live actions, as you said, not always the one that people enjoy watching, but you can't deny the success of this one. And with Mission Impossible, it's $190 million worldwide with $127 million haul from 64 overseas countries, and there are still other countries it's going to open up in. So, and you look at this, I mean, Tom, that film, Mission Impossible, that's the $400 million movie. That's how much it cost to make that movie. That's what's been reported. And then you look at Lilo and Stitch, clearly a smaller budget in the approach and whatever, but like both of them scratching itches for moviegoers going into this thing. So I thought it was pretty amazing when you look at the reaction to it. And we know Lilo and Stitch is a massive merchandise seller for Disney. So the fact that this live action film comes out and is so positive, there is a bit of a commentary there, because people are like, oh, I hate live action Disney. I hate live action Disney. It's like, there's a lot of box office success that says your opinion is the minority opinion. So it's an interesting situation to be in now when you look at both of these movies, because they couldn't be more different, yet somehow have appealed enough to be successful, at least for the opening weekend. We'll see what I think Mission Impossible is in a much more dangerous place overall going forward than let's say Lilo and Stitch is.
Mission Impossible only has a few weeks to really rack up some big box office before the heavy action competition comes in. Lilo and Stitch is Lilo and Stitch is making $1 billion. That Lilo and Stitch is 100% $1 billion movie for Disney at this point. Like, I'll call that right now. Because it has no sign, it's not going to slow down. Like, kids were out in force. I went into that theater, half the audience came with their Stitch dolls. Like, they were amped and ready to see it. And to your whole Disney live action remakes thing, like, here's the thing. Nobody likes a live action remake when it's a shittier version of the thing that you love.
Well, people did give $1.6 billion to the Lion King adaptation. So
there are people that like it, so they can have their opinion. I think it is a shitty version, but you are right. But to your point, the complaints about Disney doing live action remakes, the people who do complain still complain about things like Lion King because it was a shot for shot remake. You kind of run this risk of you can do a Lion King that's a shot for shot remake of the original, but live action. Yeah. And that creatively doesn't necessarily get certain fans or critics excited. It definitely got enough people excited to cross $1 billion and get a sequel. Right. But then when you do something crazy, when you do Snow White and you change a bunch of things, people are like, what is this? I don't like this. It's not what I wanted. So you have to find that balance. And I will say, I don't think the movie's perfect by any stretch, but I think Lilo and Stitch does a better job of striking that balance than almost any other Disney live action movie. It is the movie that you loved growing up. Yeah. It has scenes and dialogue that are pulled directly from the movie. Right. But then they have a bunch of scenes and a bunch of sequences and a bunch of characters that are new. They change things around. They do things differently. So I'm watching this movie and there are scenes that I can quote line for line, but then they really made changes. Some people got upset about some of those changes, particularly the ending of the movie. Yeah. But all in all, I think the girl who played Lilo was fantastic. I think the girl who played Nani was fantastic. I think they did a great job with Stitch. He felt like Stitch. He had a lot of new scenes and a lot of new stuff to do. But like this was the movie that people loved. And I think people went to this audiences went to see this movie and kids got to see the character that they knew they were going to see and the story that they knew they were going to get. I think a lot of parents sat through that movie and came out and said, oh, that was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. And I think this is going to be the next Disney live action movie after Lion King that's going to get a sequel.
Oh yeah.
We're 100% getting a Lilo and Stitch 2. Like Disney already this weekend saw that box office and they were like, all right, what are we doing next? Who's coming back? So, and then with Mission Impossible, look, I think it is interesting because I do think maybe it is that it's the final one that got people out in theaters because I don't know why it had such a stronger box office than the last one, which I thought was a really solid movie. But they delivered. I think Mission Impossible, I probably didn't like it as much as John did. I think it's a little bit overcomplicated. I think it's a little bit silly at points, but when that movie drops into what it's good at doing, which is putting Tom Cruise in ridiculous situations where he's doing his own stunts, it delivers. Like my audience was cheering and screaming. So
yeah, by Monday, they're predicting it's going to take over 200 million by Monday. So it will keep its profitability for a little while here. Shannon, what are your thoughts on did you get a chance? You got a chance to see Mission Impossible. You haven't seen Lilo and Stitch yet. So what are your thoughts on Mission Impossible Final Reckoning and what, like a mini review here? And what do you think audiences are responding so positively to it as opposed to, as Michael said, the last installment, which kind of arguably came out maybe not the best timing for it. But do you think that's what's helping the timing here, or that's what's helping the film here, is the timing possible?
Well, they didn't know. I mean, the whole idea that Barbenheimer was going to be this cultural event, like you can't predict that. I mean, I think the whole idea of Barbenheimer kind of started as a joke. Yeah, it was like, hey, it's the Barbie movie coming out with a biopic about the guy who created the nuclear bomb. I mean, so in terms of counter programming, you can't get two things that are further away. And then the fact that both movies were exceptionally good, and like again, the folks over at Paramount and at Tom Cruise's company, you just can't predict a moment like that. I honestly think Dead Reckoning is a better movie than Final Reckoning. Like normally when I come out of a Mission Impossible movie, I'm not entirely clear on what I watched, but I know that the sequences were thrilling, and Tom Cruise's team, I enjoy seeing. I especially loved the inclusion of Haley Atwell. Yeah. This one, I did go see this one on an IMAX screen, like a fake IMAX screen, but like an IMAX screen, in a packed theater. And that you did, I think your assessment was correct, Johnny, that the first hour of that movie, it's I wouldn't call it a struggle, but there's a lot of setup.
Come here, normies. Let's tell you what happened. It basically is what it is.
There's a lot of setup for things from the previous 7 films. And for an actor like Isai Morales, who I loved in Dead Reckoning, I don't think they did Gabriel a ton of service with this one. They made him very mustache twirly. I thought that biplane sequence was incredible, and it would have been even better if he wasn't cackling. I mean, he really became a robber baron, like tying a woman to train tracks in that last sequence.
Yeah.
But the bringing back, was it Dunlow from?
Yeah.
I mean,
one.
Dunlow and his wife became my favorite characters in the movie. Like, they are the ones that I wanted to make sure. I'm like, I have to make sure that these two survive. Again, watching Palm Clementieff switch sides, and literally just speaking French the whole time. Like, she is a fun performer to watch kick ass. When they break her out of jail, that sort of straight kick that she does, she is just visually dynamic. And after watching what she could do, it's a shame she didn't get to do more of that as Mantis. Like, granted, Mantis has a different skill set.
There's a lot of characters in those movies, man.
But there was a lot. They probably left some money on the table with her, like in terms of things that she could have done. But I left that movie and I'm like, to me, and this is not a negative thing, this movie is like every other Mission Impossible movie in that was a ride. I left the theater out of breath and a little unclear on what we had watched, especially with the whole idea, like, if we delete the entity, then the world's markets are going to crash. And I was like, okay, so you got him in the little thumb drive thing. I thought that was a fun movie. Is it one I will revisit? Probably not. It might be one that I pull up to watch sequences again, because again, that biplane sequence was outstanding.
Yeah, I as Michael said, I like it probably more than both of you. I just really enjoy this franchise. And do I think it's better than the last one? I think, Shannon, you bring up an excellent point. I do think the last film is better than this one, because I think this one slides into that Star Trek 6 territory where it's like, let's all just remember why we love these people. And it's fun to do that with nostalgia. But I think Star Trek 6 did a better job of it story-wise, whereas I think Mission Impossible 8 didn't quite get there 100%. I hate to say this. I don't think Haley Atwell was up to the task, and I don't think she is as dynamic as Rebecca Ferguson. And I think both of those films suffered to a degree because of that. But I do love what we got with Ving Rhames and with Simon Pegg and their relationship, their connection with each other, and where they put, as Michael said so well, they understood where their bread is buttered, which is with Tom Cruise in an action sequence. The biplane sequence and the submarine sequence are the reasons to go see it, and they're the reasons to go see it in IMAX. They're really the reasons to go see it in IMAX, to enjoy the difficulty of all of that. But it does at times fall into the same mistakes that these recent Fast and Furious films do. They believe that the lesson is the bigger, the better, no matter how ridiculous or outlandish. But what makes Mission Impossible really good is that they ground it in some really believable story. And then they have these kind of crazy action sequences that don't veer into too maddening of territory. But I think in this film, the story isn't quite as strong, doesn't hold together as strong. You guys putting up excellent points. Esai Morales becomes a footnote in essence, or just a convenient villain when we need it. Whereas the entity is really what they should have been focusing on. And I like the AI aspect of it all, but I think there could have been more. And I think no one's mentioned this, but losing Vanessa Kirby, I think, was a big loss in this movie. You needed her kind of playing both sides type of element to be a part of this. I don't know why you move Indira Varma out for Janet McTeer. I don't think she added anything extra to the film. And I wanted more Angela Bassett. I just wanted so much more. If you're going to bring her in as the president, there should have been so much more with her. That being said, though, it really did work for me. I know some people clutching their pearls over the reveal of who Shea Wiggum's character is. I mean, come on, people, relax. I didn't think it was that big of a deal as people made it out to be. So in the end, I did enjoy the film. I will watch it again. I'm going probably this afternoon. But I agree with you, Shannon. It's not one that I will put like above Rogue Nation or Fallout or even Mission Impossible 3, to be honest with you. And I do put it below Final Reckoning. Dead Reckoning. So
yeah, I think that you do. I agree with Shannon. Like, bringing back the guy from the first movie.
Yeah, Dunlow was great. Oh my God, yeah, Dunlow.
Him and his Inuit wife worked great. But the reveal of your dad is John Voight, like, I was like, I don't care. Like when you have a movie that's this big, like trying to do let's have our references to every fucking movie in the franchise, and then Hannah Waddingham getting the date that from Angela Bassett, which was the date when the first movie came out, and be like,
Yeah.
somebody broke the rules this day and they saved our, like, I was, guys, calm the fuck down and just get, like, dude, this is already a complicated movie. And like, granted, to Shannon's point, as anybody who listens to us know, I come out of any Mission Impossible movie when that was great. What the fuck happened? So with this one, I was like, yeah, submarine, great. Biplane, great. Everything else, cool. Tremel Tillman, great. Like,
yeah.
Great. He's like one of the highlights of the movie. And other than that, I was like, all right, cool. You know, like it was like there were some really great sequences. So it did fine. Like I wish it well. But yeah, John, what were your thoughts? Because I know that as someone who has not seen the Lilo and Stitch movie more than like one time in theaters, the original animated one, what were your thoughts on Lilo and Stitch, the live action one?
I mean, I almost didn't go to the screening because I was like, I don't know that people give a crap what I have to say about this movie, right? But I was like, you know what? It's Monday night. It doesn't seem to be too busy out there traffic-wise. I'll go down and see it. I am so glad I went. It was such a wonderful film. And it's great. Just like with Last of Us, which we just reviewed recently. If you guys want to watch our review, it's up there for the final episode. I was sitting back and I didn't have any kind of preconceived notions or is this going to compare it to the original? I didn't have to do any of that. And as its face, it's a fun, enjoyable movie. Yes, are there story issues? And can you argue about how they made a change to certain characters from what I remember in the animated film? I didn't have any problems with that because there's a sweetness here. And the concerns that Shannon expressed about the trailer with the acting, which I agree with, by the way, some of the acting in the trailer, none of that is here. Both of the actresses,
Agreed.
I think, do a wonderful job in the roles that they play. And it's really sweet and moving. And I like the change they made for the ending. I know some people don't like it. This is the reality of life sometimes. And I like that they were willing to go there with the change and the connection that they will still have and all of that. I think it worked out really well. And I'll tell you this, Billy Magnuson really won me over. Like, I like when he plays these kind of out of touch, like Made for Love he's great because of him and Milioti. So when he gets to play these kinds of characters, especially bouncing off a more serious Zach Galifianakis for once playing the straight man, I thought there was nice chemistry between them. Now, did that all work? Maybe not 100%, but I enjoyed Hannah Waddingham too as the voice. She did a great job as the voice.
Grand Councilwoman.
Great Councilwoman. And the chemistry between Lilo and Stitch was just fantastic. So for me, I really had a fun time.
No, I agree. Yeah. I think that, as someone who does know, as I was saying, every moment of the animated movie, I actually really like Billy Magnuson too. I understand the reason. I know a lot of people are mad that we don't get to see Pleakley and Drag. And believe me, I am as big a fan of Pleakley and Drag as anybody, but seeing two aliens in ridiculous human costumes in an animated movie doesn't quite translate. So I understand why they did the switch. I think Billy Magnuson really shines. Yeah. I think Zach Galifianakis is one of the low points of the movie for me.
Oh, really? Okay.
Not just because he didn't do the Jumba accent. I definitely love Jumba better from the movie, but I think that by putting Zach Galifianakis in ultimately the heavy role in this movie, so you're robbing him of being the silly one because Billy Magnuson gets to be the silly one, but Zach Galifianakis doesn't have the weight of a heavy. Yeah. So what we just got was a flat Zach Galifianakis for an entire movie, particularly because one of the other big change was getting rid of Captain Gantu, the giant shark guy who comes in at the end to do the job because Jumba and Pleakley couldn't. So really, with no Captain Gantu, Jumba has to take on a much bigger, more arch role than he does even in the animated movie. And so I think Zach Galifianakis doesn't quite get there at all on either end of it. So I thought he was kind of a weak point. I understand why they didn't do Captain Gantu. There's a certain point where you're like, we got to make this movie affordable in live action, and let the less aliens, the better for that. And so really focusing your money on Stitch, I think, was the right part. But I like the addition of their neighbor. I thought she was a great character.
Amy Hill.
And look, I think one of the things that you should do when you do a live action remake is think through the story and go, what was the really sweet message that we told in animation that was a simpler story, but really pure and beautiful and perfect?
Right. And
what do you do to make it, to John's point, a little bit more realistic? And the reality is, spoilers, I'm about to spoil things from the ending of the movie, but we're having a chat. So your fair warning if you haven't seen Lilo and Stitch yet. Having the social worker agree that Lilo can kind of live with their neighbor and David, and that they will take care of her while Nani goes off to school to become a marine biologist, does not mean that Nani dumped Lilo.
No, I
and that
know.
she is not caring about her. Like, the reality is, like, people, when they're in these situations, like, this was a real thing that, like, people have to figure out how these found families are going to work and how you take care of your loved ones and your family while still doing your life. That's true if you are a sibling who has to all of a sudden take care of your brother or sister. It's true if you're an adult and your parents need to come live with you because of their health issues. Like, yes, it would be great to be like, yes, and we all live together and it's one happy family, but also saying, we're going to figure out how to make this work so that you can still have your life as well, I thought was a really good change. I don't know that the dialogue all nailed it perfectly, but I thought they did a really, really nice job with that. And so I was getting annoyed with people who are upset about that. I don't mind those kind of changes. And honestly, I would be much happier if Disney live action continued to take some of the classic stories and update them and tweak certain elements to the story and still deliver something that was as quality as this movie compared to some of the other live action remakes we've gotten.
Yeah, this is it's can be deceptively simple, this movie, but I think it actually holds together really well. And in the end, I found myself wanting to watch it again, which I did not anticipate when I walked through the door. But Shannon, to go back to you with the Mission Impossible, because we wrap up here this conversation, you know, we're fans of the franchise, but like, where do you think it goes next after this, regardless of the box office? Because it's doing well as an opening weekend. It doesn't mean maybe it's going to hold to make $1 billion, which would it have to make some kind of money. What do you think going forward? Is this the end, or is the positive box office from at least the opening weekend a signal that maybe they're going to explore another one? I mean, because you could argue Tom is 61, 62, maybe. I mean, Liam Neeson was older than that making Taken movies. So is this a possibility now that he might not be done? Is this not the final reckoning?
No, I think if you have two underperforming films in a row, that if they were to revisit the franchise, it would be in a much leaner, meaner, more budget-friendly way, I think. And again, what happened with Dead Reckoning and Final Reckoning? Like you can't plan for that. COVID and two back-to-back strikes. That's just those are situations that those are.
You can't even plan for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean these are once in a lifetime events that happened 3 times in the production of these 2 movies.
Yeah.
But my guess is like it'll kind of be what Tom Cruise wants to do. I mean, you certainly have the argument that could you do a Mission Impossible streaming series? Absolutely, you could totally do that. Will Tom Cruise let that happen? I don't know, because I feel like this franchise, aside from Top Gun, this franchise is the nearest and dearest to his heart. So the ball is really going to be in his court. And Paramount, in this time of studios being gobbled up by big corporate conglomerates, my guess is that Paramount will want to stay in the Tom Cruise business, even if these last 2 movies didn't. The last 2 movies underperformed, but before that, they had Top Gun, and it overperformed. Like they talk about how Tom Cruise saved cinema in summer 2022. So I think Paramount will want to stay in the Tom Cruise business, but they might be a little less inclined to spend $400 million on a movie.
I did see a meme that said if you went to an IMAX AMC this weekend and you had Nicole Kidman do her intro about movies, and then you had Tom Cruise come in and do his intro about IMAX, it was like seeing both of your divorced parents come to see your play and tell you that they're proud of you. Like, it's like we're not sitting together, but we're both really happy that you're here at the movies.
Well, I mean, as we wrap up this conversation, Michael, your final words on this. I mean, this is a pretty good start to what we've got going on into the summer. I know we're still kind of at the beginning here, but I mean, June and July is where we're going to see these massive juggernaut films come out. So does this bode well? And you can even weave in how well Thunderbolts is still doing, not necessarily a hit, but certainly doing well considering what people anticipated. And that Sinners is still going strong overall, and Minecraft is about to cross $1 billion. You know, there was a time when people were saying, not even that long ago, a few weeks ago, that the movies might be dead here and again. And here we go with this reaction. What do you take away from this overall weekend here going forward into the summer?
You know, I walked into AMC yesterday to go see Lilo and Stitch, and we were all walking down. We were looking at all the posters. We were looking at the crowd. And granted, it was like a ton of kids there for Lilo and Stitch, but also adults for Mission Impossible. But you just looked at the posters on the wall.
Yeah.
And it's been a while since I've been in a theater and seen that many posters where I'm like, yep, got to see it. Got to I think we all, because we were living through it, underestimated how the output really did slow down because of the pandemic, because of the strikes, because of all these things. And it feels like we've come out of that. And this summer really finally feels like a summer movie summer like we haven't had in a while. And I think that's really, really exciting. And I think that, to your point, like looking at Sinners, looking at Minecraft, Thunderbolts is a wild card depending on who you talk to. You talk to some people and they're like, Thunderbolt is a bomb, and Disney and Marvel are really disappointed. And you talk to some people and they're like, Thunderbolts did better than they were anticipating, got on track, and we're very satisfied with how it's performing. So Thunderbolts is kind of a wash, but I feel like people in general feel like it's getting Marvel into the right spot. And then, Minecraft $1 billion, biggest Memorial Day weekend opening ever. Lilo and Stitch, I think, well on track for $1 billion. Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, don't think it's going to cross $1 billion. Do think that it will ultimately, by the end of the summer run, like have made a profit.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's like they're already about halfway there. They got a few more weeks of wide open space. Then it gets crowded, but people will still show up for it. I think they're going to be okay. But I think that, yes, I don't think that the box office of Final Reckoning is going to warrant another one. But I agree 100% with Shannon that if anybody can walk in and say, hey, I know my movie only made $10, but I want to make another one, it's Tom Cruise.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, and look, and again, like I was saying at the top, I hope that Disney looks at the performance of Snow White and looks at the performance of Lilo and Stitch and takes the right lessons away. Do studios traditionally take the right lessons away? No, but maybe this time they will. Who knows?
Well, and Shannon, I want your thoughts on that, but also Final Destination Bloodlines is doing some of the best numbers any installment's ever done in the franchise. So if you're Superman and you're Fantastic Four and you're Jurassic World, and even 28 years later, you might be going like, this could be a good summer for us. We might be all right here in our box office tally. So, Shannon, what do you take away from this weekend?
I think it's encouraging the variety of movies that we are getting.
Point.
Like with Final Destination, with 28 years later, with I Know What You Did Last Summer, the fact that you have a healthy sampling of horror, the fact that, I mean, Mission Impossible, yes, it is a big action franchise, but that is an action franchise that is aimed at an older audience. Same with F1, you know, Brad Pitt's Joseph Kosinski, Formula One movie coming out. The fact that we are getting the variety of films that we're getting, that is really, really encouraging. My only hope for summer 2026 is we bring back the big summer comedy. I feel like, you know, comedy in a packed theater, a good comedy, there is nothing more infectious than the laughter of 400 strangers in a crowded theater. And I hope that in the rebuilding that movie theaters are doing, that they will devote some resources to that, because again, comedy in a movie theater is great.
Well, we got, and you mentioned horror. Megan 2.0 is also.
I was going to say, when you look at the next, like, because you mentioned obviously the big three with Jurassic Park Rebirth, Superman, and Fantastic Four, but we've got Megan 2.0. We've got the live action How to Train Your Dragon coming out. We've got Elio coming out from Pixar. We've got F1 coming out. Like, there's like a good number of movies. There's a couple others that I can't remember at the moment, but
I mean, Naked Gun, you talk about big comedy, that's coming out August 1st, Shannon. That qualifies as summer, and The Bad Guys 2 is the same weekend as well. Both comedies, so could be doing really well. And then after that, we have Weapons, and then and Freakier Friday comes out August 8th. That could do really well comedy-wise.
Weapons looks terrifying.
Yes.
Freakier Friday, I think, is going to be so dumb, but I'm 1,000% in, and I'm all the way there opening weekend. And then The Naked Gun, that trailer...
Yeah.
I mean, I was in the IMAX. I was at the Chinese theater seeing Mission Impossible, and that Naked Gun trailer played. Yeah. People were in Liam Neeson in a comedy playing Frank Drebin's son. Yeah. Like, it just works. So that could be, I mean, if it's good and it gets good word of mouth and people go and see it and say, this was really funny, that could be the big comedy in theaters that kind of gets comedy back on track. So Shannon might get his wish.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, there you go. That's our thoughts on the box office this weekend and mini spoiler reviews for both Lilo and Stitch live action and Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Thank you so much for watching or listening to us. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Well, I was also going to say I would really like the return
please.
of the adventure movie, but Fountain of Youth is out on Apple TV.
Yeah.
If you want to. The Fountain doesn't give you those 2 hours back. Anyways, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at geek_buddies, on Instagram at _geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung. On Instagram is Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you'd like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at NKToon. If you'd like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
Mikey, as we wrap up, what do you got?
Go ahead and smash that like button below. Subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the amazing content he's got there. Leave your comments below. Do you think movies are back? Are we totally off base? Did you like Mission Impossible? Did you like Lilo and Stitch? What do you think? Leave it in the comments below. If you're listening to us on a podcast, leave us some stars and comments so we go up in the rankings and more people can find us. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. And don't forget, we dropped our spoiler review, as I mentioned earlier, for the final episode of season 2 of The Last of Us. That is out for you all to watch or listen to as well. And then later on this week, we'll have our main episode coming up here for the Geek Buddies. All right, take care of yourselves. Be well. We'll talk to you next time with another brand new Geek Buddy here, brought to you by the
Geek
Buddies.